Trump's America First policy, exiting the Paris Agreement and its global impact. Briefly review the background of the Trump administration's announcement on the first day of office to repeal nearly 80 policies, including the decision of the United States to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. Emphasize the impact of this decision on environmental protection, climate change issues, and how to reshape the international image of the United States. The most important point is that the Trump administration's retreat from global climate agreements, especially the Paris Agreement, means that the United States will no longer commit to emission reduction targets, further promoting the America First policy. From the perspective of the manager's interest chain, policy changes will directly affect different stakeholders, including businesses, governments, consumers, and environmental organizations. We will analyze from the following aspects. From a corporate perspective, withdrawing from the Paris Agreement is a huge benefit for oil, gas, and coal companies, reducing carbon emission restrictions and investment pressure in clean energy. For example, large energy companies such as ExxonMobil and Chevron may be supported by loose policies in their operations. Relatively speaking, withdrawing from the Paris Agreement is disadvantageous for companies in the renewable energy and green technology sectors, such as solar and wind energy companies, as it may reduce investment and government subsidies and compress their market share. From a consumer perspective, policy changes have a relatively small direct impact on consumers, but indirect effects may be reflected through energy prices, product environmental standards, and other factors. For example, the decline in traditional energy prices may benefit consumers in the short term, but in the long run, the decline in environmental quality may affect public health and social well-being. The impact on government and international relations. The series of policy decisions made by the Trump administration not only affect domestic stakeholders, but also bring about significant changes in international politics and economy. From the perspective of the government's interest chain, the government may reduce the implementation of environmental policies and lower regulation of certain industries, thereby allowing enterprises to obtain higher economic returns. But it also faces the risk of worsening environmental problems. In the long run, this may increase the cost of future governance. Some local governments, especially those that rely on environmental protection projects, may face the challenge of reduced fiscal revenue. For example, some clean energy projects may be suspended or postponed due to policy changes. From an international relations perspective, the withdrawal of the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement has exacerbated the differences with Europe on climate change issues. EU countries may increase their investment in green energy while promoting independent environmental policies from the United States, forming a new model of international cooperation. In the global climate governance and new energy market, China may increase cooperation with other countries to fill the gap left by the United States in this field, thereby promoting China's green technology output. Possible impact on global markets. After the United States withdraws from the Paris Agreement, the global economy will also be affected. The reduction of environmental responsibility of enterprises may lead to a decrease in production costs of traditional industries and stimulate domestic economic growth in the short term. Investors may react to changes in U.S. policies, and the flow of green investment funds may shift to other countries, especially those regions that are still committed to climate and sustainable development goals. From a long-term strategic and risk perspective, the environmental risks that may arise from withdrawing from the Paris Agreement cannot be ignored. With the intensification of global climate change, extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and ecosystem collapse will exert enormous pressure on the economy and society. The Trump administration's policies may increase reliance on traditional energy while neglecting long-term investments in clean energy. This will have a negative impact on the transformation of the energy structure in the next 10 to 20 years. The profound impact of the Trump administration's repeal of 80 policies, particularly on the domestic economy and international politics of the United States, emphasizing that certain industries may benefit in the short term, but in the long run, environmental degradation and reduced international cooperation may lead to greater global challenges. Ultimately, the impact of the interest chain will help understand how this policy drives the U.S. economy and international status.